Hi everyone, this is audap. Let's check out Zero Fire, the Toaplan Arcade Garage. I'm running on Nintendo Switch. Alright, so this is a combination of Hellfire and Zero Wing, along with, I forget which one this is, Ghost Castle or Haunted Castle or something like that, if I remember right. So with Hellfire, you get the arcade version, the Mega Drive version, the Genesis version, and then the PC Engine CD version. And with Zero Wing, again, arcade version, the Mega Drive version, and the PC Engine version. So let's check out Hellfire first. Again, it's a classic Toaplan game. I think a lot of people, at least in the States, are going to be more familiar with the Genesis version. Personally, I really like the PC Engine version, but I'm a PC Engine fanboy, so that's probably why I like it so much. Alright, we will probably need to adjust the screen, because I don't think it's set up for full zoom. I think there'll be a bit of a black border around it. Obviously, the resolution is going to be a little finicky. But again, like a lot of M2 shot trigger games, there's tons of options. Lots of different screen options as well. We can leave the gadgets on and off. Go ahead and turn the gadgets on for now. Alright, and again, this is the arcade version to start off with. Yeah, again, these games are known for their both their creativity and their difficulty. They're certainly not easy games, especially this the original arcade version. I mean, it is at times very, very unfair. And I remember, I think this game also has the AI scaling, where the better you do, then the harder the game gets. You have 4 different weapon types, which you can change at any time. I believe this one also lets you directly change which one you use as well. And a lot of this game is just knowing when to use certain weapons and when to switch to other weapons. Yeah, like I said, the game is relentless. I mean, it's not an easy game. The home version's toned down the difficulty quite a bit, with the PC Engine version probably being like the easiest of all the versions. But easy really, being very much a relative thing. You know, there's really no such thing as an easy version, an easy game of Zero Wing. You know, really pretty good graphics for the time. I know it's sort of hard for people to judge graphics nowadays when they're looking at something, you know, on a more modern display and, you know, seeing more modern graphics, seeing other titles which, you know, push the limits of current hardware. Although I don't think that's really true of the shmup genre, but you know, you got to look at other games that were released around the same time as this game, and you know, they weren't. You know, while this wasn't like the top tier arcade game with like the absolute best graphics, it was you know, very, very good looking, and the art I think is really what stands out the most. It's got real solid looking ships, environments. And as we see the home versions, then we'll, you know, you can. I think like Toaplan handled the Genesis version themselves, and I want to say Hudson did the PC Engine version. Yeah, so we have a super easy version of Zero Wing along with Hellfire, right? You can do the arcade version, then super easy version. There's a challenge. Looks like there's a challenge mode. What's a challenge mode? I think it must be like the Dudon challenge modes. Yeah. All right. Yeah, you'll play certain sections of the game with different powers of weapons, different setups. See how far you can get. What your score will be, you know, and you know whether or not you can make a perfect run of the section. I mean, it's in a way this is sort of like training, right? We're train ourselves to learn the patterns of the game and the different sections of the game to get even better, so that when we do finally play the whole game as we normally would, you know, hopefully we've had the correct skills that we've building up to do that. Yep, we didn't use rewind, so we completed the challenge. And again, just kind of a cool way to learn the game and extend the extend the life of the game as well. So let's see, there's a Mega Drive version and a Genesis version. I don't remember there being like a whole lot of differences. Very, very slight. I think the difficulty is is a bit different on the Japanese version versus the Genesis version, the North American version. I'll try and wrap it on though. And again, I would say these of all the versions, you know, the arcade version being the best looking version. The Mega Drive version holds up really well. I'd say the graphics, you know, because of the multi-line scrolling, you know, has the best look of the home versions. But that doesn't mean the PC Engine version is a slouch. It just doesn't look quite as good as the as this version. Yeah, you notice the scale of the objects are a little different, you know, just because the resolution is, of course, lower on the Mega Drive version. You know, the arcade version, just since it was its own, you know, piece of hardware, you know, was able to run at a higher resolution than the Mega Drive. Let's check out the Genesis one. Like I said, I think these are pretty much the same, outside of some changes in the difficulty. I believe the North American one is a little more difficult. Actually, hold on. I think I need to change it so that it uses auto fire. Yeah, of course, these days this game is worth a fair bit, since you know, it didn't sell particularly well, and of course now it's on a defunct game system, and you know, had a limited run of physical medium. You know, and naturally, you know, cartridges degrade. You know, people lose cartridges, throw away cartridges. So, you know, that dwindles the supply more and more. And while Mega Drive and Genesis games don't hold up their value like a typical Nintendo system would, they can still be pretty expensive. Maybe. Yeah, again, it's a different looking game than the arcade, but it's still very good looking. Yeah, this was a fairly early release on the Genesis. So you could have easily missed this, or it's possible that the game store that you bought games at, they just didn't stock this game. In these days, the shmup was still a popular genre, but limited store space, limited shelf space in a game store. There weren't as many dedicated game stores back in these days when this game was released. The good thing is that the emulation's spot on. It really is like having the original systems, except you're using a modern controller on a modern display. And of course, the PC Engine version having quite a few more bells and whistles, Red Book audio, all these cinematics. That's why it was so easy to be an NEC fanboy back in these days. If you could afford the CD system, I mean, you were getting a very good game experience. Something which really wasn't possible until the Mega CD came out. But even then, Mega CD games were, trying to make games that were a little more genre breaking. So the traditional games, there were not quite as many as there were on the PC Engine. Especially if you were playing games in North America, where there was an obsession with Sega of America to make full motion video games. So they were saying no to a lot of the traditional video games. I'd say the colors are even more vibrant than they were when you were playing playing a TurboGrafx or a PC Engine. I mean, this is looking the best that this game has ever looked. And again, the game just has very different graphics. The main difference in this version being that there's just a single plane of graphics. The Genesis version does feature, multi-plane graphics, which just overall has a better look. But the PC Engine here, it has much more vibrant color, slightly toned down difficulty as well, so it's it's a little bit more playable. Oh, you're tearing your hair out, but you'll still tear your hair out. Because it ain't that easy. Yeah, this one restores you. I mean, this is part of the reason why it's a little easier, because it restores you from where you were. It's not a checkpoint system. Yeah, and I just think that this version just plays better. Like the ship just handles a little bit better than it does on the Mega Drive. But don't get me wrong, you know, the Mega Drive version is still good too. It is a different experience than playing the PC Engine version. That's why it's hard to say that, you know, any of these versions are better than the other, because they just play so differently. Yeah, personally, I'm okay with giving up the multi-scrolling backgrounds, since you're getting, you know, better color and you know, just a slightly altered version of the game. Is it a little more playable, a little easier? Obviously, I'm more familiar with the PC Engine version, as you can see. Anyway, you guys get the idea. Then Zero Wing, which you know, is rather notorious since the European version had some pretty poor translation of the game, but a legendary translation nonetheless. But outside of that, the game itself is really good. Yeah, boy, 89. God, I didn't realize it was that far back. Yeah, we're hoping someday we'll see Vimana, which was another Toaplan game, a side-scrolling game, I think. Maybe it was Vertical. Gosh, it's been so long time since I played it, but it kind of have a limited release. Doesn't have like a wide audience, but it's another, in my opinion, another Toaplan gem. That unfortunately, time has seemed to have forgotten. Yeah, this is another famously difficult Toaplan game. And so the better you get, then the more difficult the game gets as well. Regardless, pretty good looking game. Good mechanics, nice and solid. Might be a little slow moving for the younger generation gamer out there, but I think if you adjust to the speed and you're okay with it, you can get used to it, then I think you find a pretty satisfying shmup challenge. Terrible. As I haven't played a ton of the arcade version. Most of my experience with Zero Wing has been for the PC Engine version. And since the Mega Drive version wasn't released on this side of the world, North America, never really got a chance to play it. Played around through emulation, but not heavily. Yep. Cinema was a giant meme before the idea of memes were a thing. Before we gave it a name. Or at least referred to it as meme. I mean, meme has meant different things originally than what it means now. And again, the Mega Drive version looks good. It really does. Getting this level of gameplay and graphics that was pretty close to the arcade, especially if you were just coming off of the the original NES, then this was a bit of a shocker. How good things could look and how much closer they could be to the arcade version. It's not exact, obviously. I mean, the Mega Drive just wouldn't have been capable of doing it, but really good looking. And I believe Toaplan did this game in-house as well, which explains why the quality is so high. Yeah, and it's so interesting to see the number of games that share that sort of same font and style of the HUD up here. I think even the original Thunder Force had this same sort of font and HUD. Doing terrible. Listen, I'm not as familiar with this game. You know, other than the PC Engine version. We'll stop and appreciate this this European version. I know most people would be certainly too young to know about this meme. But it was quite popular back in the day. In AD 2101, war was beginning. What happened? Somebody set us up the bomb. We get signal. What? Main screen, turn on. It's you. How are you, gentlemen? All your base now belong to us. You are on the way to destruction. What you say? You have no chance to survive. Make your time. Ha 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 ha. Captain! Take off every zig. You know what you're doing? Move, zig. For great justice. Actually, if the translation wasn't so bad, I mean, it's kind of epic. Yeah, again, I think this is largely the same as the Japanese version, outside of adjusting some of the difficulty. Yeah, I still think this is very, very good. Slightly different experience than playing the arcade game, since the arcade game has such a is so dramatically more difficult. it does change the experience a bit. But I really like what they did with the graphics. I mean, it's awful close. You know, things are a little smaller, mostly due to the resolution of a home console. But it still has a great look. You know, all the redesigned wallpapers, or sorry, the redesigned backgrounds. I think, you know, in some ways I kind of like them better than the arcade. Which, you know, some people consider sacrilege to say such a thing. But you have to remember that, you know, the developers behind the arcade game also developed this game. So, and when they went about to redesign it and get it to fit on a cartridge on the Mega Drive, it's not like somebody else had some sort of creative interpretation different from the original designers. I mean, these were the original folks working on this game. Maybe not everyone, but certainly the producer. I think the game directors are the same, if I remember correctly. So yeah, fair number of the same people worked on both versions. Back in these days, Toaplan would try to work on the home versions of their games. You know, sometimes it wasn't possible, so they had to depend on another party. You know, like with Hellfire. Yeah, we get a you know, a different boss. Well, maybe not different. I mean, it certainly has kind of a different look to it. We don't see as much of it either as we did in the arcade. Again, the resolution differences make make it so it wasn't possible. Definitely don't need another speed up. He's already got to move a little fast. Well, I mean, you get the idea. We got the PC Engine version. A bit different of a beast. Very, very similar. Again, this version of Zero Wing never made it to North America. It's strange that Zero Wing just didn't get over here. We got Hellfire, but not Zero Wing.
アビゴールの科学力をもってすれば地球連邦軍など恐るるに足りぬ。地球侵略など時間の問題であろう。はあ、連合艦隊の奇襲準備も。
You know, the music's so much nicer, but again, it's CD audio, so I do know people that prefer the sound of the Mega Drive music. Not sure what's wrong with those people. Hopefully, there's a cure for that sometime down the road. Need to see somebody with a sick mind for so long in their life. Yeah, and again, for me, I just prefer the way the additional color that is afforded from a PC Engine game versus a Mega Drive game. In this case, we're getting some basic layer scrolling. That doesn't quite look as good as the Genesis, but I'll take the additional color over another layer of background scrolling, which in your mind just sort of disappears. You only really notice it when you pay attention to it specifically. Flew into the bullet. I want to make friends. Don't make friends with bullets. I don't think they make very good friends. In personal opinion. Especially alien bullets. You'll end up with quite a few disagreements that you may not be able to resolve in a peaceful manner. Like I said, the PC Engine version may be, quote unquote easier, but that doesn't mean it's an easy game. You can still have quite a bit of challenge, at least in my opinion. Then we have the DLC. So you do not have to purchase this. This is actually a separate piece of DLC. Or if you have the physical version, then the physical version comes with this. But the eShop version does not come with this game. Yeah, and of course there was a CD engine version, a PC CD engine version of this game. I think it was the only home console version of this game. Like I said, I don't think they got it on the Mega Drive. Oh, oops. Oop. I'm actually glad that they did offer this game as DLC, because like I think the first Toaplan Arcade game, the Shark series, you know, Spectre Fire Shark, I don't think they offered that downloadable game that was available on physical version, so you kind of had to get the physical version to get the actual little arcade game. And we're gonna look at the PC Engine version. And I have a feeling that this is the version that most people remember. Like, I don't think this game had a huge arcade run. Now, again, very similar to how the arcade version, you know, looks, but obviously different. Right. Yeah, and actually, me personally, I enjoy this game more than I do the arcade game. But certainly that's not true of everyone. You know, there are plenty of people out there that prefer to play the arcade game. Here you still get the animated tiles, which, you know, kind of give the illusion of parallax scrolling. Oh, what the heck happened there? You're being a moron, apparently. Yeah, it's kind of nice that you can respawn where you died. It's not a checkpoint system like so many games of this era would have had. In some ways, I mean, it does make the game easier since you can just revive where you died. But at the same time, you know, it does make it more enjoyable not to just be revived at a checkpoint. You know, in the arcade, that made sense to do that. You know, because you can only get the only money you got from a person was the money they put into the arcade unit. So it made sense to get to make sure that the game was harder. Let's look at the arcade version B. Yeah, Demon's World. So this was the North American release. Although again, I think it had a very limited run. I mean, personally, I never saw this game. Oh, maybe this is the Asian version. But I never saw this game in the arcade. Even later on as an older title. But clearly it existed. I know nowadays we're spoiled that we can buy a game anywhere, through an online store, but that just never used to be the case. Arcade games were limited to the arcade owner's discretion. What they thought could make the money, if they got a good deal on the cabinet, how successful a game could potentially be. All those factors would dictate whether or not you ever saw an arcade game at your local arcade. Yeah, it's funny, Arcade version B is like, it's almost a sequel. It's been redressed so heavily. Yeah, to me, this game has almost like a Sega look to it. If they had like a faint white outline around them, then you could easily fool me that it was a Sega game. Which it's funny to think about that there was an era in Sega where they had like bright outlines around their characters. That was just a thing that they did. Yeah, I know. What an unusual game to include on the Zero Fire collection. A run and gun, versus the two shmups. But it is a Toaplan game, so it's not that it's a piece of Toaplan history, or Toaplan. And they did think this game was popular enough to make a home console version. At least if you owned a PC Engine and lived in Japan. I don't know. I don't think the game's too bad. It's no Contra, but it's not bad at all. Especially this version B. I think version A is a little harder to love, but version B, as I said, is quite a bit different of a game. Right, the gobstopper. yeah, so I think that covers pretty much everything. I mean, we could play the super easy versions of these games, but it seems almost a shame to play it like a super easy version of Hellfire and Zero Wing. Like they're so well known for their difficulty. But at the same time, it is a rather unreasonable difficulty, especially later on in the stages when the AI starts to adjust a little bit higher. Unless you have, very good memory and hand-eye coordination, then you may never see the end of this game. Without questions like these, I probably never would. Well, in the case of this game, you could dump enough credits into it to maybe get to the last stage before it became unbearably difficult. And, you just have to resolve it yourself to never seeing the end of it. But, yeah, unfortunately, the super easy version of this also supplies you with a slightly faster ship. So, at least for me, there are times where I want the game ship speed to be a little slower, especially when it's in the harder to navigate areas. It's also a little weird I can't switch the weapons and fire at the same time. I have to let go of the fire button and then switch my weapon. Is this really the super easy version? Awful lot of bullets on the screen for it to be a super easy version. Yeah. I miss this era of shmups too. I mean, thankfully there are still new shmups being made. They just don't come very often, and unfortunately they're not very well advertised either. Like we played a pretty good one a couple months back called Space Corgi, which very much reminded me of this era, but hardly anybody heard of it. Ugh. Oh my god. Games weren't easy back in these days. I'll tell you. So spoiled on how, with how easy games are. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but yeah, it's pretty shocking to go back and play these games, which I don't really remember being that hard. Then all of a sudden realizing, yeah, they are pretty hard games. Yeah, it's too bad it takes so long for M2 to bring these over to North America. Like I said, I end up buying these games on the Japanese eShop. It's the only way to really get them in a timely manner. And some of these shot trigger games still haven't made it over to North America. You always have to check the limited run game site to see if somebody finally put something on a cartridge. But no guarantees. Oh my god! What the hell am I doing? Yeah, I forget how absolutely relentless this game is on the later stages. It's like the game is punishing you for playing it. Yeah, so you have 4 different weapons that you can switch to at any time. No, there's no one weapon that's perfect for every situation. So there's a fair amount of memorization that you'll have to do in order to switch to the weapon that's going to work for you, depending on where the enemy is and where their bullets are coming from. So it's got quite a bit of strategy to it. A bit like the Capcom arcade game Sidearms, or many other arcade games which allow you to switch weapons anytime you wanted to. Yeah, and again, most people are familiar with the Genesis version of this game, which is a very good version. Not quite so punishing as this version. So you could, in theory, beat that game, the Mega Drive version or the Genesis version. You'd have a hard time doing it, but you could do it. This one, I think only the most absolutely dedicated person is going to be able to see the end of this game. It is quite difficult. But this Toaplan Arcade version, you could play the easy version, which is what I'm playing here, which allows for infinite credits and fully powered weapons. But under normal circumstances, you'd have to power up over and over again, and you'd have to start at a checkpoint, depending on if you were playing version A or version B, whatever it was in the arcade at the time. Alright, just look at it. It's just bullets everywhere. This is not even considered a bullet hell. I mean, this is just how regular shmups were made back in these days. But there is something really fun about it. Once you finally get past that tricky part that's been holding you up for a while. It's almost like a sigh of relief. You finally got past it. And the only modern equivalent is like a From Software game now. Although I feel like those games are a little bit too unfair. Yeah, look at these bullet patterns. I mean, it's craziness. This weak spot's a super jerk too. Just bopping up and down every once in a while, whenever it feels like exposing itself. Ugh. Yeah, I suppose it is like the punch out of space shooters. Was that during this time, like the late '80s, early '90s? I mean, a lot of shooters were made this way, just absolutely punishing you. I think a lot of people forget like Gradius 3 in the arcade, almost impossible. I mean, I think you'd have to be a very special kind of person to beat the Gradius 3 arcade game. You'd have to be like one of those folks that that can play the like 2-player shmups by themselves, you know, with controlling both ships at the same time. You know, just a level of insanity, which unfortunately I'm not capable of. Yeah. Yeah, I do like Hellfire more in this collection, but zeroing is pretty fun as well. There's something about being able to switch through weapons anytime. You know, just kind of find like the perfect weapon for the right situation. There's some of that here, since you have, but you pick up weapon types. That's the only way to change your weapons. Oh, that's right. This is the checkpoint system. Ugh. Oh my god. I always forget when those gotcha enemies come out. Ugh. Yeah, there you go. Lost a quarter. I have to walk home. Not enough money for the bus now. Alright, one more time. Then I gotta call it a night. really, I'm like so used to playing the PC Engine version of this. You know, and the arcade game is just, it's so much harder. There's just like more bullets, and the enemy patterns are, you know, well, they're not like totally different, but they do diverge a little bit. Like the further into the game you get, then the more different the patterns are. Again, it's one of these games where the AI adjusts its difficulty based on the power level of your ship. So, you know, the higher the power level of your ship, then the harder the game gets. So there are some strategies where you don't grab power-ups for certain sections of the game. Just to make it easier to get through the, you know, the main portion of it. But then, you know, you have to grab power-ups for the bosses. I forget you can grab things, a limited number of things, with your little tractor beam. I don't know how useful that is. I suppose it does save you from a hit, potentially. Ugh. I always just forget that I have that tractor beam all the time, because you kind of had to get close to an enemy to grab them. So there's a certain amount of danger that you present yourself just to grab that shield. I even think I miss the color that they had in these games too. Like it's you know, things are so desaturated nowadays. It's just weird to see things just like pop with color. On a game which is still kind of gritty, but at the same time, it's like, oh well, here you're just gonna have something that's just bright purple or deep blue, and it's totally okay. Anyway, we'll stop it there. This is audap. You've been watching Zero Fire, part of the Toaplan Arcade Garage. That's running on Nintendo Switch. So you'll have to have a Japanese account in order to purchase this game, you know, or have a Japanese system, which also means that you would have a Japanese account. The same thing goes for the PlayStation 4 version of this. Although, you know, if you have a North American system, you can technically get this game on the Japanese shop, the Japanese PSN, or the Japanese eShop. It's a little easier for Switch owners because they can just buy Nintendo points from the Amazon Japanese, you know, JP website, you know, the Japanese Amazon site. So it's a little easier to get points with the Nintendo eShop. But with if you have the PlayStation 4, unfortunately, you'll have to have a card issued with Japanese funds from a Japanese bank. Otherwise, the transaction won't go through. So just bear that in mind. If you want the PlayStation 4 version, you either buy the physical copy, or you have to have a Japanese account with a Japanese a Japanese address and a Japanese bank card. So a little harder to get it on the PlayStation 4, but it is available on that system. The Switch, you just you know, create an email with a username and open up the Japanese eShop. You can sign in with a Nintendo's Japanese site and give yourself an account there. Then you can sign in on your Switch, buy some points through Amazon, and you can get games that way. So yeah, I think this will be released as a physical cartridge and from Limited Run Games. I think it's sometime next year, along with the Dudon Pachi Resurrection. But it'll be a while, and you know you have to play the limited runs lottery. You know, hopefully you can get a copy of the the 20,000 that they print. But other than that, yeah, if you have some ways to play this, definitely check it out. It's worth it. Both these games are awesome. They're classics. You know, I think people will recognize Zero Wing from all the memes from the early 90s. But even outside of the memes, it's fun games. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching. I will see you at the next stream. I'm gonna go to bed. I'm tired.